Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Throne of Seal based on novel. So let's start. In ancient times, the dragon race was prosperous and ruled over the whole continent. That time was when dragons were the most tyrannical, not only greedy and violent, but also totally depraved. They show lust toward any kind of creature, and therefore, their uninhibited mating gave birth to many species of subdragons. For instance, the current beings known as earth dragons have such origins. Chimeras are the same, a powerful kind of subdragons. The first time one appeared, it combined the extremely rarely seen poison elemental gigantic dragon and a magical beast of lizard species. Their posterity sustained variation, turning into poison and darkness dual elemental two-headed dragons. But this chimera's strength was inclined towards its darkness elemental lizard side, and maybe because these two bloodlines showed a very strong compatibility, two-headed chimeras started to become more and more numerous. After several thousand years of reproductions, due to the survival of the fittest, the race of darkness lizard gradually went extinct. And when poison dragons died out, the chimera race finally formed. Although these chimeras were far from being as powerful as their poison dragons ancestors, they succeeded their greed, and started attacking other races and invading, and established themselves in the whole continent. Chimeras had a very great vitality, and while reproducing, their bloodlines started to show even more changes. At most, these changes were in the elemental aspect, and didn't touch upon their appearance. They can be counted as one of the most well-known antique races, and after undergoing continuous evolutions, the chimera race gradually started to grow more powerful beings. Their power was calculated depending on the numbers of heads. Two-headed chimeras would at most reach the initial stages of the 9th rank. But three-headed chimeras were near the edge of the 10th rank, displaying strength close to gigantic dragons. Four-headed chimeras are known as dragon killers, and despite having dragon blood, their most favorite food is gigantic dragon. And after reaching 4 heads, the chimera's total strength already exceeded gigantic dragons. Just before, I was afraid of wounding you, so I didn't let Xingxuan display her full strength. Reaching this point, Long Haochen's group finally gained knowledge on the kind of creatures known as chimeras. Long Haochen couldn't help but raise the question, "Senior, how about 6-headed chimeras?" Chen Hongyu glanced at Long Haochen before responding extremely seriously, "There is such a legend. The 4-headed chimeras monarchs, known as chimera emperors, were the 5-headed chimeras appearing in legends and acclaimed as demigods, venerated by all chimeras. As for the 6-headed ones..." A tint of dread filled Chen Hongyu's eyes. In the history of the chimeras, there has never appeared chimeras with 6 heads or more. And in the legends, 6-headed chimeras are said to be gods of destruction of the same level as dragon gods. So in ancient times, 6-headed chimeras were symbols of destruction and ruin. That's why I was so shocked when seeing your mount. If that was really a 6-headed chimera, he could very possibly become a threat not below demons. Long Haochen gasped, "Senior, are you certain that Hao Yue is a 6-headed chimera?" Chen Hongyu unhappily replied, "Certain, what farts. If that was a 6-headed chimera, Xingxuan and I would have died just before. On the basis of the chimera's destructivity, it would absolutely not permit existences offending it to live. Still, I'm very doubtful. If that magical beast of yours isn't a chimera, he should have at least some chimera blood in him, or even have achieved a series of evolutions to turn into this form. But if it doesn't have a pure lineage as a chimera, why would its blood purity suppression towards Xingxuan be so high? Haochen, tell me in precise details your story with that mount." Long Haochen gave a nod, then talked about his original arrival in Night's Sacred Mountain, how his search for a magical beast there had failed, and how in the end, a teleporting array was used to summon Hao Yue. When Chen Hongyu heard the part about how Long Haochen helped to change Hao Yue's fate with his own blood and forcefully changed his element, he couldn't help but feel moved, as his stretched expression eased up. "And a few days ago, we were just done assisting Hao Yue in completing his last evolution, in that realm of his, resisting the attacks from an undead creature from there. That's why I can affirm that he has just acquired his 6th head." After pondering for a short while, Chen Hongyu remarked, "I don't know what kind of existence your mount is either. I don't have any clues." Long Haochen asked, "You don't know either? And could he be related to the chimera race?" Chen Hongyu shook his head, "That's hard to say. The most possible would be that one of the chimera's forebears had managed to travel through that other realm after reaching a sufficient level of cultivation, and that continuous transformations, due to the influence of that world finally gave birth to a generation of powerhouses. But now, I can be certain that your mount is extremely destructive. Its ancestor surely left indelible memories of terror, otherwise there wouldn't be such colossal amounts of undead creatures attacking you every time he achieves an evolution. Secondly, there's a great difference between Chimraz and your magical beast. Although it has 6 heads, it definitely cannot compare with an emperor or half-god chimera, let alone a god-level chimera. That's because his cultivation is only at the level of a human powerhouse of the 8th step. Do you know what this means? Long Houchen shook his head. Chen Hongyu continued, it means that he will surely continue to evolve, and even very possibly acquire a 7th head, maybe even an 8th. Eh? How did you determine this? Long Houchen asked in incomprehension. Beside, Sanshui Popo stepped in, isn't that an obvious thing? What's the most important for a magical beast to evolve? It's their blood purity. Our old man's 4-headed chimera has the strength of a magical beast of the 10th rank. For your magical beast to suppress her so completely, it would be stranger for it to be unable to reach the 10th magical beast rank. In the future, it will be far more powerful than Xingxuan, but as it is only at the 8th step for now, could it not keep evolving? Summoners spend their lives having dealings with magical beasts, so no one else was more used to magical beasts than them. Hearing the explanation from Sanshui Popo, Long Houchen immediately understood. Chen Hongyu explained, your 6-headed mount is perhaps not a chimera. None of his heads looks as powerful as a chimera's, but I cannot determine what strength he could reach in the future. But I am certain that its blood's purity is above a chimera's, and that its degree of nobility could perhaps compare with a dragon god. I managed to determine this for 2 reasons residing in the difference between your mount and a chimera. Chimeras may have a lot of heads, but in practice they all share the same line of thoughts, which is to say that no matter how many heads they have, their thoughts will be the same. But your mount is not the same, as you have said that each of his heads has its own process of thought, only sharing a common body. Even among antique magical beasts, these existences are very rare, and the only ones I can point out only have 2 processes of thought. I don't even dare imagine a magical beast with 6 processes of thoughts. I didn't think I would see such a thing in my life. The second point is their utilization of elements. Chimeras have different elements at their disposal, but their only offensive magic ability is the use of their breath. Although these breaths have many uses, it is after all different from magic. But based on what you have said, his real strength is far above his official cultivation rank, because your magical beast can cast many kinds of magic on his own, to attack, defend or even support. These 2 aspects, put together, make him extremely intelligent. Just imagine, what if a human had 6 brains to process thoughts and make decisions? What degree do you think his intelligence would reach? Hearing Chen Hongyu's explanation, Long Houchen had a sudden flash of insight. Although Chen Hongyu didn't know what kind of magical beast Hao Yue was, he at least gave suppositions on Hao Yue's possible antecedents and variations. Lin Xin, who was standing nearby, asked, Temple Head Chen, based on what you said, if Hao Yue has some chimera blood, couldn't he be very dangerous? If he evolves in the future to an even more powerful state, can't he become extremely destructive? Chen Hongyu had a faint smile. At first, I had such worries, but it is not the case anymore, because of the way he came to our realm. Houchen even changed his elemental attribute when arriving in this world through his blood. To say nothing of the favor to such a savior, this change caused the completion of their blood contract, establishing Houchen as master. Do you know what this means? Among summoners such as us, the common final goal is not to have an extremely powerful contracted beast, but a blood-linked beast. A blood contract is known as a contract of absolute fidelity. As long as it is completed, it will persist eternally until death. This blood contract between Houchen and Hao Yue is dominated by Houchen, making it so that their relationship is much closer than any ordinary beast and their master. At the same time, the increase of the two's cultivation will keep affecting each other, which is to say that the progress of any party will cause a progress from the other one. I believe that Houchen has surely experienced this bit. If one day, Houchen dies, Hao Yue will undoubtedly die as well, which is the result of this blood contract. In the opposite case, Hao Yue's death in battle won't affect Houchen. Unless one party is acknowledging complete allegiance to the other one, and has a total trust and appreciation of the other, a magical beast will never forge such a bond with a human. Of course, a blood contract has also some benefits for a magical beast. Its evolving speed will greatly increase. Therefore, no matter to which level Houchen's magical beast evolves, it won't ever cause an excessive destruction to this world. Taking a step back, if one day he really threatens humanity, as long as Long Houchen dies, he will die too. Chen Hongyu was speaking extremely calmly, but in the ears of Long Houchen's group, his words had a strange tonality, especially to Long Houchen, who reminisced the moment Haoyue just came into this world in that weak and terrified state, looking possibly about to crumble at any time. His look gradually became soft. Right, no matter what secrets Haoyue holds, that's his blood-contracted companion. Having already devoted so much, what use was there to ponder any further about his abilities or origin? Senior, about your test, Long Houchen tried asking. Chen Hongyu's look immediately became heavy. Since Haoyue suppressed Xingxuan forcefully, he had put this matter totally aside. Now that Long Houchen just mentioned it, looking impassible would be rather strange. Sanshui Popo glared at her husband very unhappily. Neither she nor Chen Hongyu could say that the previous test doesn't count, and that they should have another go. Their statuses being such, Chen Hongyu would sound really treacherous if he said that he had let Long Houchen's group defeat him, but if he went back on his word, his face would be totally lost. After a long sigh, Chen Hongyu waved his hand. You're free to go as you please. After that, he turned his head and left. Sanshui Popo couldn't help but swear at him. What a useless old fool you are. Chen Hongyu replied in fury, I am useless. Do you think these little guys are so easy to deal with? Haven't you seen that assassin running around me? In actual fact, if Chen Hongyu hadn't the heart to aim to kill Long Houchen's group, and still kept holding back to some extent from beginning to end, defeating them would really be a hard task, especially with his contracted beast suppressed by Haoyue. Still, although Chen Hongyu and Sanshui Popo were gloomy, their shock was much greater than their gloomy feelings. As expected from those who became a titled demon hunt squad, they were really resourceful. Sanshui Popo walked in front of Long Houchen while holding Chen Yinga in her arms, and declared, Long Houchen, remember that no matter what decision you make, as long as Yinga is staying well and in your team, the spiritual temple will always support you. But no matter the reason, if something happens to her, our spiritual temple will regard you as mortal enemies, even if you someday become the chief of the alliance. After saying that, she handed Chen Yinga to Wang Yuanyuan and turned round to leave. Standing at Long Houchen's side, Kia murmured, what an unreasonable person. Lin Xin giggled, if Sanshui Popo could have some good sense, she wouldn't have such a reputation. But that person has never gone back on her word. Sima Xian declared, Boss, it seems that we won. Shouldn't we be cheering? Right. Having passed through Chen Hongyu's test, their team was finally reformed, and the bright glimmer of hope was ready to depart for their new trip of missions. For the next little while, in the spiritual temple's beast fighting grounds, the loud sounds of sudden bursts of cheering could be heard. Nightfall. After having dinner, Long Houchen returned to his room early. After having the test in the morning, he went to look for the Yuyi merchant group in the afternoon. Until now, the news had yet to come, so they could only keep on waiting. Without accurate news, moving rashly wouldn't show any results. At the same time, he posted a letter to the Alliance, reporting for Yang Haohan that his team was done gathering, and that he was waiting for the Alliance to assign a mission to them. Their last completed mission had already been a matter of 2 years ago, so everyone had feelings of impatience. Maybe this was not really for the sake of completing the mission in itself, completing the missions for their own sake. Ever since the start of the Holy War 2 years ago, the demons' global offenses inflicted massive damage on the Alliance, but in the same time, the demon side also incurred severe losses. But on the large scale, the global damage from both sides wasn't too large, though their mid to low range forces went into a steep decline. This holy war felt very challenging to the human side, but also brought them a little hope, the hope of victory. After all, humankind was still holding on. Even the southern mountain pass, which has the weakest defensive force, didn't let the demon forces enter into their territory. Simply holding up through it all was a kind of victory for the alliance, and fed their self-confidence in achieving a final victory. What did the demons have? Outside from the ability of reproduction and a great ruling system, they didn't have much else. And could the resources endlessly accumulated by humankind since the start of the Dark Age 6,000 years ago be exhausted by this mere holy war? In a contest of recovery speed, the human side absolute didn't believe themselves to be inferior to the demon side. Therefore, in the Temple Alliance's nobility, fundamental strategic changes happened. Of course, the current human side wouldn't launch a counterattack, but kept paying attention to preserving their strength, while gaining invaluable experience and knowledge against demons. The gap was still present, but it didn't mean it was impossible to fill it, right? After Hao Yue's new evolution, the purple color released from his body was called Blood Purity Force by Chen Hongyu. After his evolution, Hao Yue would surely be able to destroy demon god pillars even more easily than before. If they could make it into demon territory and destroy some more demon god pillars, they would achieve new milestones at every victory. Since 2 years ago, when Long Haochen started his secluded training, he had already made his resolve to destroy as many demon god pillar as possible to greatly shake the demon's foundation. The demon side being so powerful, he didn't believe himself to be able to wipe them out thoroughly, but as long as they could be weakened to some extent, in the end, humans could one day prevail over them. As Long Haochen was pondering over the future of bright glimmer of hope, knocks were heard. Opening the door, Kia was charmingly standing outside. "Kia, quickly come in." Long Haochen welcomed her in the room, when, right after he closed the door, Kia suddenly threw herself on his back, tightly embracing his back's figure. Long Haochen could feel an instability in her emotions, and even felt a moist feeling coming from his lapel. Immediately he became greatly startled. "Kia, what happened to you?" Turning back, Long Haochen accepted her embrace. Right now, Kia was clad in a black long skirt, accentuating her snowy skin. In these 2 years Kia grew up too, her figure becoming taller, but its feeling of softness didn't change in the slightest. Taking her in his embrace gave off a really splendid feeling of completion. Her tender waist and her body's warmth immediately gave uncontrollable feelings to Long Haochen. They were already grown up, and didn't have the same pure love as in their youth. The contact of their bodies would hardly come without intense physiological reactions. Long Haochen felt his arm shivering, as images of the naked Kia in the illusory shrine couldn't help but come back in his mind. For a moment, he felt surges of heat. He had far too many things to shoulder. Only at the times he could be alone with her was his heart appeased a bit. "Haochen." Kia raised her head, coiling her thin arms around Long Haochen's neck like a snake, actually taking the initiative of pressing her lips to his. As he was her only love target, how could Long Haochen resist in front of such enticement? 4 lips pressed together, blending inexperience with young tenderness. Kia's lips were very cold, still shaking, but her movements were very intense. Tightly holding Long Haochen's neck, it seemed as if she was afraid of letting go of him. Cold gradually turned into heat, and their breathing became hurried. Their clothes scattered around, and the instant the two of them fell to the bed, Kia couldn't help but let out soft groans. Their primitive instincts led them to search for the origins of life. In the end, the instant Kia found out that moment of warmth, her body suddenly convulsed. "No, don't!" She suddenly shouted loudly, disregarding everything. Long Haochen's rough breathing suddenly came to a stop. Hearing her sudden reverberating shout, his limpid eyes suddenly sobered up. Kia struggled to sneak out from his embrace, embracing the quilt as she burst into tears. The flame of desire gradually came down, as Long Haochen was standing full of shock in front of this scene. From the moment Kia entered, something seemed to be wrong. But the two of them having rapidly gotten caught up in their desires, Long Haochen became full of shock and confusion at her current change. "Kia, what happened?" Long Haochen advanced hastily, not daring to make contact with her and his forehead dripping with sweat. "It's my fault, I shouldn't have. I'm sorry, so please don't take offense." "What happened to you?" Kia shook her head with force as her tears dispersed due to the shaking. "No, it's not your fault. I'm in the wrong, I just can't, I can't. Saying that, she burst into tears under Long Houchen's embrace. Even when facing a demon god, Long Houchen didn't feel at such loss as now. He really loved Kia, and looking at her pained appearance, he became torn with grief. Furthermore, he had absolutely no idea of why Kia became like that. After a long time, Kia's emotions gradually stabilized, only letting out tiny sobs. Long Houchen didn't even dare ask or look too much at Kia, because they were totally bare. To reduce the feelings of enticement, he had no choice but to wrap the quilt around Kia's body, consoling her gently. Raising her head, Kia looked at Long Houchen with a still hazy face. Sorry Houchen, I can't. Long Houchen shook his head with haste. It's nothing, I was just too hurried. Wiping the sweat on Long Houchen's forehead, Kia tightly nestled in his embrace. It's my fault. I'm just too afraid of losing you. Seeing her emotions as rather stabilized, Long Houchen finally attempted to ask, Kia, what do you mean? He absolutely didn't believe that Kia cried so bitterly just because of the excessive intimacy. Kia lowered her head. Ever since losing my memories, I believed that there should be another person in me that should receive your love, and that's the past me. Today, when we faced the test of Yinga's grandfather, this feeling was especially distinct. When everyone reported to you, raising our morale, I could see how dedicatedly and dearly they viewed these past memories. But I don't have such memories, I don't have any of them. That instant, I felt just like a total stranger. I am not that Kia in your heart anymore, right? But at the same time, I love you just as much. Did you know about that? Despite wanting to regain my memories, I am also very afraid of that. Without regaining my memories, I won't be able to confirm your feelings for me. But if I regain them, won't the current me disappear, eternally unable to come back? That's why I'm really scared, and don't like that feeling at all. I'm afraid of losing you forever, which is why I came to you, wanting to offer you my most precious thing. But just that instant, I suddenly realized that all of this doesn't belong to me, but to that other me. That's why I cannot give myself to you, I just can't. Hearing her so mournful voice, Long Houchen became silent. He asked himself whether the one he liked was really the past Kia. Just as Kia said, after her loss of memories, some changes happened in her emotions. The depressed feelings she had due to her memories having yet to come back were known by Long Houchen more than anyone else. However, his way of thinking wasn't like Kia's. No matter whether it is before or after losing her memories, Kia was still Kia. It's just that her memories were separated in two parts, which is why he could patiently wait. Lightly stroking her disordered hair, Long Houchen said in a low voice, You are really an idiot. Why would you think that way? I love Kia, her everything. Be it your body, your hair, or even your little drops of sweat. No matter whether it is before or after you lost your memories, you are just you, my Kia. All you have lost were memories. You don't have to worry about losing your current self after getting them back. That's because they will only fuse back, and won't possibly take over or erase each other. Hearing Long Houchen's words, Kia gradually calmed down from her emotional state. Drawing close to him, she didn't say anything, but her shaking calmed down greatly. Kia, did you know? Actually, I am very happy, much more than if we were ordinary lovers. At this point, Long Houchen stopped, voluntarily cutting in the crucial part. As expected, his words roused Kia's curiosity. She lifted up her head to look at him, eyes red and inflamed from crying, and asked, Why? Long Houchen kissed her forehead with a smile. That's because my lover fell in love with me twice. Just think, if after your memories come back, your two loves for me become one, how can it not make you love me even more? Just how much luck do I have to be able to live such a thing? So you don't need to worry, be it your past self or your present self, I will love both without reservations. I won't hide from you that, deep inside, I still wish for you to recover your previous memories, because I hope for you to remember our happy times from the past. But I will never press you to recover your memories. We should just let nature follow its course. But no matter what, and no matter when, you don't have to worry about losing me. As long as I'm alive, you will always be the only one I have feelings for. Even after death or reincarnation, you will still be my only one. When I was young, I didn't understand what love is. But now I understand, it is about always thinking of someone, about longing for that person, taking care of that person, watching attentively, embracing, kissing and being willing to sacrifice anything for your sake. I love you and love your everything. Your memory loss definitely won't cause me to divide you up. I definitely won't make any distinctions, just because you have lost your memories. It only pains me and makes me want to treasure and protect you all the more, because I haven't been protecting you well. Houchin, Kia shouted loudly, struggling free of the quilt and suddenly throwing herself at him, deeply hugging him. Her tears burst out once again, but this time, not out of pain but happiness. In the morning, Long Houchin appeared in front of the group with dark circles under his eyes, and outside of the absent Kia, everyone else seemed to be laughing up their sleeves. Their rooms in the spiritual temple were very close, so the loud shout from yesterday's Kia would be heard by anyone who's not deaf. Adding to that the fact that Kia hadn't returned to her room the whole evening, one could well imagine what they were doing. Long Houchin looked as if nothing happened on the surface, but he was the only one who knew about his pains. On the previous night, what happened was beyond the description of persecution. After waking from her tears of happiness, Kia rapidly fell asleep in his embrace, a very tight embrace. To let her have a good rest, Long Houchin avoided making any noise. In the embrace of their most beloved, the two of them were devoid of the slightest barrier of clothes. Having just reached his 20s, his vitality was able to even match the purity of his light essence. The results went as one can well imagine. The captain of the squad, Bright Glimmer of Hope, stood upright for a whole night, but by chance, his physical functions were sufficient, or he could maybe really have broken down due to the excessive blood flow. At the time Kia became awake, she immediately panicked in blushes when thinking about the situation from that time. After bathing in cold water for a quarter of an hour, she came out, but couldn't show a nice expression. I am going back to ask for news from the Yu Yi merchant group. Long Houchin couldn't bear the provokingly explicit looks from the others, and escaped in a rush. After shutting the door, he could hear a burst of laughter behind him. Blushing in spite of himself, he had the fierce thought that the next time such a thing happens, he definitely had to eat Kia. Modu capital city, Moon Clan's palace. He really appeared. Yu Yi gave a blank look at the letter in her hands. Immediately, all sorts of feelings welled up in her heart, causing her body to shake slightly. Ever since rescinding her marriage with Arbao, she had been residing in the Moon Clan's palace. Not taking the slightest step out, she concentrated fully on cultivating. Being an extremely intelligent girl, Yu Yi understood well what kind of character Arbao had. Maybe he would really rush to the act, and in case she was outside that time, he may do something that couldn't be taken back. Would there be any other choice but marriage then? But no matter how insistent Arbao is, he definitely wouldn't dare cause trouble inside the Moon Clan's palace. For the Moon Demon God Agar's holding the second of the 72 Demon God pillars, his status was not just a number. The Moon Clan's powerhouses being extremely numerous, even the Demon God Emperor kept an extremely close relationship with Agar's. But the fact she remained in the Moon Clan's palace didn't mean that Yu Yi was completely oblivious to the outside world. She's the one who single-handedly made the Yu Yi merchant group the greatest group of freelance merchants between the Demon side and Temple Alliance. After the start of the Holy War, their resources declined, but it didn't mean that they were emptied anymore. Their transactions of goods already turned into trades of strategic information. And the Yu Yi merchant group obtained benefits from both sides. Under Yu Yi's suitable command, they only focused on offering for sale some unimportant strategic informations to the two sides, causing the merchant group to exist and be well between the human and demon side. As for their wealth, after so many years of accumulation, it managed to sustain itself despite that event. The situation won't be like that forever, so when the Holy War ends, her freelance merchant group will still keep running. Yu Yi had special methods of communication. To be able to immediately get the most precise information, she invested a lot in that aspect. Through special sound transmitting crystals, she was able to receive and release sounds from the other side of the continent. So everything happening on the side of the Alliance would be known to her at most 2 or 3 days later, making it also more convenient to immediately transmit orders. Now, the Yi merchant group had already become the greatest information traffickers between the demon side and the Temple Alliance. In her ability to gather news, despite looking like a mere princess of the Yu clan, Yi was worthy of being called number one of the continent. So Long Haochen could be said to have found a good person to look for information about Yang Wenjiao and Duan Yi. The token Yi handed to Long Haochen at that time was extremely special. She long ago made the arrangements to be immediately informed no matter where it appears. And wasn't that exactly what happened? The token appeared in the Myriad Beast Mountain Pass of the spiritual temple, with news of his request for news regarding Yang Wenjiao and Duan Yi. So he was really in the Temple Alliance and really appeared. Even Yi herself didn't notice that Long Haochen's appearance brought her such uncontainable excitement. Actually, she wasn't too familiar with Long Haochen, but understood with complete certainty his degree of genius. This idiot. The holy war is already close to an end, but could it be that he cannot just stay hidden? Don't tell me he doesn't know about making preparations safely. Yi's hand lit in dark purple, melting away the falling letter. Part 1 end here.